And you've heard the show. So when the music fades, I'll play the intro music real quick. I won't play the whole thing.
This here is
when
a
it gets
true
to this
story.
point,
Crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond.
We'd like you to come in with your "So There I Was," be it a teaser or what have you, and then we'll introduce you. Fig, you want to pick it up and then give it to me, or vice versa?
I don't. It's up to you, my friend. I am ambivalent.
Oh, well, you're benevolent too, but that's.
I am benevolent. Well, okay. Well, hey, why don't you introduce it, and I'll introduce this week.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And Swede, do you have any other questions before we start?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Somewhere in the middle, I'll mention that we've got FTIratings.com as a sponsor, and they're the ones that keep bringing this show to you. So, and that'll give you about $2.25, $2.30 to take a pee break or whatever it is you need to do. Go beat your dog, go beat your wife, whatever.
Hey, repeat.
Yes, sir?
Something, I think it's on your end. Something is squeaking like rubber when you're moving.
Oh, was it
yeah,
this?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I got to keep my chair. Got to keep my chair away from the desk.
Oh, the armrest is hitting the thing, isn't it?
It's hitting the desk. It's my new.
Right.
There we go. It's a little lower.
I was looking at Yo thinking,
setup.
what the fuck is he doing? But he's still. So I didn't think it was him. I figured it was you.
For everybody on board here, get to see my sexy basement.
Nice.
I'm in my new studio in my new house until I finish my new studio. And we'll go from there. So
Nice.
listen, that's
So you want me to come in and say, "So there I was."
yeah.
And you're going to say that.
Explain it to him.
No,
Fig,
you
while I
are.
screw up my
All right.
screwed up camera.
So when the music starts fading, you go. You can come in. Do you have? It's like, so there I was, 50,000 feet, nothing running but my wristwatch. But it was okay because I found out, whatever. There I was in my P3, 2 engines shut down, 100 feet over the water. Oh, by the way, it was at night, and we were 400 miles away from land. And then just stop, and then we'll let you finish that later on.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Do you have something?
Yeah, I got something.
Perfect.
All right.
I knew you
That's why we're here. All right. All I need to do is
push the
set
button.
the time. I'm
Push
gonna set the times.
Push the button.
Right.
Yo,
Here we go, lads.
Yo, you got to loosen up a little bit. You look really rigid.
Yeah.
Loosen up.
Have some fun.
This is not supposed to be painful. This is fun.
If you're not having fun, you're
So
doing
the
it wrong.
idea is you were sitting at the club having a cold beer, and we just start telling flying stories.
Yeah, we start shooting the shit. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
that's kind of the feel of it, the genre.
Yep.
So
if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
yeah,
Wrong.
loosen up, bro. Loosen up. You're
There we go.
stoic. I'm not gonna move.
Here we go. All right.
All right. I'm good.
All right. Are you good? Are you good?
Yeah.
Come on, loosen it up.
And I'll also point to you as the music fades. You'll see me point at the camera. All right.
he's gonna-
Here we go, bitches.
What the fuck is that?
Nice.
I'm
Thank you, Sticks.
not dead yet. I'm not dead yet.
Come back here. I'll tear your ass up.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond
When?
at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond.
So there I was, spinning through 6,000 feet, 5,000 feet's the hard deck. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to bail out of this thing.
Oh!
Oh, not good.
Did you say spinning through 5,000 feet?
Well,
Oh,
6,000,
shit. But
5,000, you have to bail out.
He got 1,000 left to go.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, man.
That was in the
Wow,
T-34.
that was awesome. So that's how all great aviation tales begin. Good afternoon, everybody, or evening or morning or whatever time of the day it happens to be whilst you're listening to this. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire. And I think I heard my co-host over there, Fig.
I'm in Kearney, Missouri, just north of Kansas City, for about 18 more hours, and
Nice.
I am really excited to welcome our guest today, Swede. Welcome, Swede. That is a terrifying story, and I want to hear the rest of that, but we'll get to that. So
Okay.
welcome, my friend. Thank you for coming
you.
on our podcast.
Thanks
I
for
need
the
to have a little
invite.
lubrication.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
he
we
came
normally-
to us through Luke or who else?
well, so I know. So Truth in Lending Clause here. I've known the Swede here for, well, so he beat me to my airline that we're at. So I probably met you 20. Well, how long have you been married?
Probably.
How long have you been married?
This time.
Well, we got married in 2012, but we met in 2008, actually. That
You
was a
and I
flight.
did.
Yeah.
You and I did, or
Yeah.
I know you met your wife. I know when you met your
Oh,
wife.
we may have met prior to that.
You
But,
you and
know,
I
it was a
you and
flight.
I met you. I knew you before that day.
Okay.
That fateful day. So it's 2000,
Yeah,
was
it's
sometime in the early
probably-
2000s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably 20 years.
And
Long time.
as a coincidence, you also did you graduate from the boat school the same time Luke did?
Yes. We were in the
Yeah.
same company, actually. We were.
Oh, there you go.
starting to believe
It-
we were good buddies. Still stay in very close contact.
And Luke was a squadron mate, a repeat, and mine, and we
Mm-hmm.
had him on the show. Gosh, I don't know how many.
I'm going to
episodes
find
we
the
did.
show. I'm going to find it.
He
It
told
was
me
like it was the
episode
first
5.
10.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know when I first met you, you know how you always go, oh, where'd you go to school, yada yada, and I knew we had a connection way back then, but
Uh-huh.
and then the world got a little smaller when I was talking to you at one point, and you told me where you were living in my high school. One of my best friends from high school is a veterinarian in the town that you live in, and his wife does small animals, and he does large animals, and you met them because you had to
Yes.
take your dog or some cat or goat or something to the
Oh,
vet,
yeah.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are regular patients of theirs. Yeah.
So what a small world.
Nice.
It is an extremely small world. It's amazing.
Well, I wouldn't want to paint it ever, but it is small. Now, so to get back on track, because we got way off to the side there, how is it that you got interested in aviation?
Good question. So, I was born in Hawaii, grew up in several different locales while my dad was still active duty in the Army, and he didn't retire until 1972. So during that time, I had a lot of exposure to the military, and in Hawaii, I remember the first time I was just fascinated was, we lived up in Fort Shafter, and I was going to Fort Shafter Elementary School, and the good
Is that
BX
on Oahu?
yeah,
Big Island.
Yep, just up the hill
Oahu.
from the airport and Hickam and all that. Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
And
Go ahead.
that's where all the Army flag people are. 3 stars, 4 stars, all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
Okay.
my dad was not. But we so the good BX is at Hickam, the Air Force one, right?
All right.
So, yes.
We'd make, the Saturday shopping trip or whatever, and you go through the main gate at Hickam, and the road kind of goes around, one of the flight lines. And back then, they had, you guys know what a C-124 is?
Yeah.
The old shaky.
Oh,
it's
actually,
a-
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Like a
a twin engine
double-
C-130, basically, right?
It had twin.
No,
had
no.
a.
That's a 123. 124 is a 4-engine recip, and it's a
Okay.
double decker. It's got 2 rows of windows, big fat ugly
Oh.
thing.
It was a tanker,
Yeah.
right? Was
No,
it a
it's just
tanker?
transport. It was
No
like the
shit.
it
Hold
was
on.
the 1950s
Sticks is frantically in the background, frantically
Yeah.
trying to get a picture.
Looking
there.
for it. Yeah.
It was.
I was thinking it was the one
it
they
played
made for
the
the
role
Atlas.
as the heavy lift role of the Air Force
Okay.
until the C5 came around. So anyway, so those are sitting out there on the flight line, and I just thought that was the wildest thing. Something that big could go flying, cockpit's
Yeah,
like
doesn't seem
way
right.
up, above the ground. So that I was about like 6 years old when I first saw one of those things. It was during the Vietnam era, and lots of activity going on at Hickam, mostly transport type airplanes. But that's how I got interested. And then when I was growing up, going through like junior high, high school, I was Monterey County was my home in California. And as you all know, safety school and PG school, postgraduate school, is in Monterey, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, naval aviators would come back from their second cruise on Yankee Station, and they'd roll from their squadron. And a lot of guys, just to kind of like dry out, they got sent on a good deal tour to PG school to get their master's degree. And back then, those guys would just grow a beard and hang up their uniforms for 2 years while they're studying, drawing, lieutenant commander pay. And so these rather civilian looking guys were combat pilots. And one of them lived around the corner from me. And he happened to be a Naval Academy grad also. He was a A4 driver.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that is what I want to do. And my little league teacher or my little league coach was another naval aviator. He was a Stoof pilot, S2Fs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And another kid was a kid whose dad was a Vigi pilot, and I mean, it was just, I was surrounded by naval aviation. And then my mom at the same time worked she was a customer service agent for United in Monterey Airport.
Okay.
And
Right.
so, I was like in 4th or 5th grade. She would go to work during the summer. There's no daycare or anything like that back then. So either I stayed home as a latchkey kid, or she would take me. There's a Stoof.
Yeah.
Take me and my sister, and we'd hang out at the airport during her shift. And then every time a 727 would come through, she would have to greet it and do all that as a gate agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she'd take me up to the cockpit, and the captain's still sitting there because they're just turning and going back to LA or whatever. And that's the first time I sat in a cockpit was a 727. And
So
I had the bug.
Nice.
I had the
yeah.
bug from early
Oh,
on.
how could you not? Oh, I
Although
get
we
it.
couldn't afford, my parents couldn't afford flight lessons or anything like that. So by the time I went to flight school, I was a 0-time guy. And even at the Naval Academy, there was a flying club, but I didn't participate in that because, you had very limited amount of time free time to do stuff. And I'd rather go down to Georgetown and chase other
Geez, I
college
don't.
students of female.
I don't know.
Why?
I don't understand that, Swede. I don't know why. Okay, but that's okay. Well, all right.
There it is. That's a C-124.
And
Oh my God, it does look like a C. If you don't look aft of the U.S. Air Force there, it looks kind of like a
Right.
C5.
Yeah.
In a way. I'll be damned.
yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
I see 3 rows of windows, but it's a double decker, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. So and then that nose up there underneath the radome, that whole mouth opens up, and that's where they load it. So I mean, you can imagine, a 6-year-old kid seeing that about 100 yards away on the flight line.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was just mesmerized.
So for those of you
Anyway.
listening and driving, close your eyes and imagine. No, don't do that.
Don't close your eyes.
Google C-124 because we just put it up on the video stream.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Awesome.
it's okay. Of course, I never got to fly such a thing, but whatever.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That looked really big and slow.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was probably a little slower than what you ended up flying. No, I'm not throwing darts. I'm just saying.
Not Stone Thrones.
So you graduated from the Naval Academy. What year was that, Swede?
That was 1983.
Whoa, that's a good year right
And-
there, my friend.
Yeah. Okay. I was, so I have to say I was not a stellar midshipman.
What?
Probably because of the fact that, I should have used 90% of my, my cerebrum in academics, but instead it was more like 10% academics, 90% on how am I going to get over the wall and go to the University of Maryland to sorority row or whatever, you know.
There you go. Right on.
It was the
But
Liberty.
again, I wasn't the only
Yes.
guy that was thinking like that.
Yes.
In fact,
Yes.
Yeah,
There's
but you know
one
what
of
you
those
call the anchor man,
what's that?
ensign or
Exactly.
lieutenant.
That's right. What was your was it engineering? Did you have some kind of engineering degree?
No,
What did you get?
I majored in, well, we all get bachelors of science,
Yeah,
everybody,
okay.
regardless of what you majored in,
Yeah.
because the core requirements are very heavy in the STEM subjects, you know. So
Okay.
everybody, even if you're an English major, you have to take 4 semesters, 2 full years of math, and et cetera, et cetera. So I was a
That's it.
management major, actually.
That just seems like harassment.
It
Right.
was pretty
Yeah,
much.
right.
But you know, I chose my major because, because of all the core requirements, you have to declare a major your freshman year because you don't have, otherwise you won't have time to finish it. So as a plebe, you know, I'm looking at these firsties who are the seniors. Hey, I just got my pilot slot. I'm going to Pensacola. You know,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
all the cool guys were like management majors, and so I selected that major because all the cool guys who were my upperclassmen were management majors, and I hated it. I couldn't, you know, it just my mind. I should have been an engineer. Yeah, I would have done better if I was like a mechanical engineer or something like that. But
Oh,
so
funny.
anyway, so I was, needless to say, I was pretty much towards the bottom of the class, but so were all my buddies. And
There you go.
you know, the way they did service selection back then was your senior year in the spring semester. So early in the spring semester, I think it started like right after the last class, so around 3 o'clock or something like that, 1500. And you know, the school radio station is doing a live cast. I mean, that's as sophisticated as it was back then, right?
Wow. How about that?
And they have the entire class in a list and in order of your rank, and it's basically based on your GPA, you know, but your military bearing grades and all that kind of goes in. They call it the QPR, which stood for quality something report. But anyway, or rating or something, but it's like a GPA. So I was 911 out of 1100, 1096 or something like that.
Attaboy.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
So I was counting, you know, I had a piece of paper and I was like counting off all the pilot slots being taken. I was listening to the radio, and by the time, and they called down 50 at a time. So it was a few
boy.
hours before they called me down there. And when I reach, you know, I look at the line of people standing there. Okay, there's a buddy, and like every 5 guys were a buddy of mine, you know, behind me also. But we all got it. We all got aviation
Hey.
or whatever we wanted.
That's
And,
good. Well, that's excellent.
and
Well,
then we
that's
graduated.
how we got to where we are right now.
That's
Thank-
right.
Right?
All right.
Doesn't matter how you got there, man. It just matters that you got in your foot in the door. That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Bingo.
So
Absolutely.
you showed up in Pensacola fall of
No.
83?
No, they had a pretty big pool. So I didn't start AI, as they called it back. You guys went through AI.
Yep.
Aviation
Yeah,
and
that's
dock.
what they
Yep.
call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I started that in April of 84. So during that time, I
Wow.
was
Almost
stashed
a
in
year.
Yeah, I was stashed in Moffett in California, you know, near San Jose
Yeah.
in Silicon
Yeah.
Valley. And that was the big West Coast P3 base. And the West Coast P3 Admiral's headquarters was there. So I was on his staff as a coffee boy or whatever. But that's where I got, you know, the exposure to the VP Navy.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Per diem
Yeah.
check cashing, not sleeping on a ship type. Yes.
Yeah.
not sleeping
Yes.
on a ship. Well, you know, we did midshipman cruises, right?
Yes.
While at school. And it was pretty funny. Our my senior cruise was, well, my youngster cruise where you play the enlisted man, You wear dungarees and you chip paint and swab decks and clean heads
rust
and
picker.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was on a World War II era oiler in the Mediterranean, and that was awesome. I had a
Really?
blast.
Cool.
Really?
All right.
Because you work your ass off all day, and it's all physical
Yeah.
work. You're hungry as hell, and you stand the chow line, and you chow down, and then you're dead tired, and you go to bed. Unless you got to stay and watch or whatever. It was good stuff. I loved it.
Nice.
But our senior
Nice.
year, my first class cruise, now you're playing the part of a junior officer. And I was on a Spruance class destroyer. It was a fairly new ship, and it was during its home cycle. So it was home ported in San Diego. So every Monday morning, it would pull
That's
out.
tough duty.
Well, every Monday morning, we'd go out about 50 miles off the coast, and they do engineering casualty drills all freaking week. And then they pull back in on Friday afternoon. You get the weekend off. So, that was good. And then you go back
Okay.
out again. It was terrible. So I remember in the debrief, when we were about to leave the ship, the XO of the ship was a great guy. He was a basketball player at the academy when he was there. And he said, so, is there any way that I could convince you to go surface warfare? I was like, I don't think so, sir. No way.
He was recruiting, but you weren't in that recruit mode.
No, I was not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
do that. But anyway, so the admiral staff was, I think, was pretty influential in the VP selection thing. So we started primary, and up at Whiting, and I did fairly well. I mean, not bragging or boasting or anything like that, but I did pretty well in primary. So I could have
Okay.
I would have got my first choice, in other words.
Nice.
And that made it difficult because now I had to make a first choice instead of, my dream sheet was just props helos. And now I'm like, well, I'll get jets. Then I thought the only thing I could think of was, crap, I'm going to end up as an S3 guy, needs of the Navy.
Right.
And they have more pilots than A7s, for example. So I was like, I don't want to be an S3 guy. If I have to do that mission, I'd rather do it off a concrete runway in a P3.
Yes.
So I ended up choosing props. And
Okay.
I didn't regret it at that time. It was good. I got my wings within a year. So I got winged April 12th of 1985. So it was almost exactly 1 year after I started AI.
Wow.
And I was still an
that
ensign.
is
So I
fast.
wanted
That
to,
is
I
fast.
wanted to get winged before I became a JG. So that was,
Well, you did that. Holy shit.
yeah.
Right on.
It
So
was, yeah.
it was not necessarily you didn't want to fly jets. You just didn't want to get stuck flying something that you didn't want to fly, and then
Well, I
be
talked to
stuck on a ship.
Right. Well, back then, if you go to the jet pipeline in the Navy side, you had S3s, A3s,
A6s,
A6s, which
EA6s.
would have been cool.
Yeah,
Prowlers would have been okay.
EA6s.
And then they had A7s. Hornets were brand new. So,
Yeah.
if you're wearing a Surgrad or something like that, you weren't going to Hornets. And then they had Tomcats.
Right.
But it's just, I was thinking, I bet when it comes to my week, I know with my luck, I will end up in an S3. And I know plenty of S3 pilots. My brother-in-law was an S3 to Hornet transition, and he toughed it out and he did great. He had a wonderful naval career, but that's one of the reasons why. And then the other
Okay.
one was, I remember my sister was telling me, she said, I can't see you flying a fighter, and she's the one that's married to my brother-in-law, who's a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
And she said, because every time you were like playing war and airplane and all that, when you were a kid, it was always like a B-17. You had a crew. So I was like, oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's true. So
Yeah.
I always kind of pictured myself as a bomber pilot, more so than a fighter pilot. So the P3 thing kind of fit, because it's very much like, I don't know if you guys just watched Masters of the Air and all the guys and the
That was
Oh,
a
yeah.
great show.
crew
huh?
members in the
Yeah.
airplane. P3 crew is a lot like that. We had 7 enlisted members and 5 officers, 3 pilots, 2 NFOs. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you selected P3s, and then when you went to your first fleet squadron, where were you? East, West, Hawaii,
East Coast,
Where?
Jacksonville. Well, of course,
Okay.
I wanted to go to Moffett because that's like an hour from my home where I grew
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
and or Hawaii, which was my birthplace. That would have been Barbers Point at the time. And they deployed. The West Coast squadrons were deploying to Japan, Kadena or Misawa, which my mother being from Japan, I had relatives there, so I was like, hell, I'll live up the road from my hometown
That
and
could be
deploy to
good.
Japan. I thought that'd be a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Nope. So of course the Navy sends me to as far away from that as possible, Jacksonville.
Sure.
And I always joke. I was always joking that some of my friends who were of uh, Asian or part Asian ethnicity, they all got to go to either Moffett or Hawaii. I'm like, I bet you my last name is what threw it off because my last name is a German.
Yeah, doesn't
last name.
sound any Pacific Islander
That's right.
Asian at all.
You might
how
say
did
it
that
sounds
happen?
Swedish.
That's because right. That's right. It may sound.
How did that
Swedish.
happen?
So my dad is well, the short story of it is that my dad's from Pennsylvania, so it's really Pennsylvania Dutch,
Okay.
But anyway,
So is that so? So let's mark this. Let me put an X in the block right now. So is that how we got to Swede as a call sign?
okay. So that came much later. So as a P3 pilot, you usually very few guys had call signs because you just kind of didn't need it. There was no tactical situation where you're,
Okay.
Fig check 6 type of thing over the radio.
Yeah.
But when I was instructing, so I went back to Whiting after my P3 tour, and I was an instructor in BT6, and I had an on-wing student who soloed. So it was at his tie cutting, he gets a chance to roast you, and then you get a chance to say what a knucklehead he was as a student and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And this kid he was like a 19-year-old NAVCAD. So we had NAVCADs going through, who only had 2 years of college.
Right.
And he was a great kid, but literally, he gets in a cockpit on FAM 1 and he said, "Sir, let me get this straight. If I push forward on the stick, then airplane's going to start going down." I mean, it was,
It was that?
like that. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh boy.
But he was a great kid.
Trees
So he
get bigger.
soloed. He passed his check ride and soloed. And so we're talking about that stuff. And so when it came time for him to roast me, he said, "Well, I don't really have much to say about, Lieutenant here, but when he called me on FAM 0, the day before our first briefing, he had this deep voice, and I was probably out down at the Sandshaker or something, and
Right.
whatever. But anyway, so I guess my voice was kind of gravelly that night, and I was kind of stern, I guess, in my speech. And he goes, "So I was picturing this. Oh my gosh, this guy, he must be like a 6'5" blonde Swedish guy." And I was quaking in my boots, waiting in the ready room the next morning, and in comes this little Asian dude, and he says, "Are you NAVCAD pointer? Come on, let's go brief." So that was his story.
Yeah.
So ever since, so all the rest of the other students that were there, they're like, "Sweet." So next day, I show up to work, and they had a name tag already made for me for my flight suit. It says "Sweet" on it. So
All right. Well, that's a good story.
Well played.
it could have been a lot worse, I figured.
There are a lot worse call
go.
signs to have.
Don't we all know? Yes.
Right. So yeah. Anyway, so
Hey, wait. Why we're there? VT6. What years were you instructor there?
89 to 91. So I got out on June 30th, 91. So separation day.
I just missed you.
Did you go through VT6?
Yeah, but I went through VT6 in the summer of '88. So
okay.
I was in and out before you got there.
Right. Yeah.
Grouch was the senior Marine. He was my on wing.
Oh,
Chuck Spencer. Remember him?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
he passed away.
Yep, I knew that.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
just shortly after I had left, I think. But oh yeah, he was awesome. Then the
was
Marine Major
awesome.
that replaced him, which I cannot remember his name, but he was also awesome. He was an A4 Mike guy, and then we had a couple of less than competent CEOs, but the XO, the CO to be that checked in during my final year there,
They fleet up.
was awesome. He was a guy with call sign Flex. He was a Tomcat guy who screwed up his back in an ejection, and so he couldn't fly ejection seats anymore. So he would have gotten Fleet Squadron Command, CAG, and probably a couple stars if everything physically worked out okay for him. But he ended up with a command of he got a miscellaneous command tour, which was VT6. But what a great guy. He was a true leader. He knew that I was a very cavalier young junior officer, but he kind of saw through that. And he was fun. So he used to hang out with us too. There weren't too many single guys. I was still single at the time. There were maybe a dozen of us, so
Yeah.
we knew where to go every night of the week in Pensacola, as you could imagine.
Yep.
Nice.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Nope.
That was a fun
I
place.
blocked that part out of my memory. So back to your first fleet tour in the
Yes.
P3 in Jacksonville. Were you guys in and out of the Med a lot? Like
We
SIG
did. Yeah, we went to SIG in 1987. That was our deployment in 87. So we arrived. In fact, it was funny. Yesterday, I was, or a couple of days ago, 4th of July, I was trying to remember where I was during those deployment years on the 4th of July. So 4th of July, 1987, we were actually passing through Rota on the way to Rota, Spain, on the way to SIG for the deployment. And shortly after I got there was when I qualified as a PPC, which is Patrol Plane Commander.
Okay.
And that's Aircraft Commander in the VP Navy. Just as an aside, though, little history lesson, if you will indulge me.
Do it.
Yeah, man.
So the VP Navy, the Patrol Navy, Patrol Aviation in the Navy, was the very first naval aviation thing. That's my squadron in 86. That's another story I'll get to in a minute. But
Yeah, I've got a P3 flying wing on a Russian Bear.
on a Bear
up on the
Foxtrot,
screen.
yeah. That's right off the coast of North Carolina, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Shit.
Yeah, back in 1986. So they were all flying boats or seaplanes, and obviously you guys know what like a PBY is and so forth. So they existed before aircraft carriers existed. So that was really the genesis of naval aviation. And then during World War II, of course, that was when the carrier became, really came into itself, both tactically and from an engineering standpoint, building the ultimate carrier and all that kind of stuff. And but the Patrol Navy participated not just in anti-submarines, but in the Pacific. The Atlantic guys were doing U-boat patrols, which is very similar to during the Cold War. The East Coast guys were doing ASW. The West Coast guys were shooting missiles and stuff. And the West Coast patrol squadrons, some of them flew land-based, Air Force B-24s in the Navy-ized version. They're called, that's a PBY. The Navy B-24 was called the PB-4Y, and they would do low-level bomb runs on island outposts and stuff like that. And, the PBYs out of Guadalcanal were flying night anti-shipping missions. So they're like at masthead height at night, and a PBY can only do like 100 knots. And they would drop
giant,
1,000-pounders.
Yeah, but think of all the horsepower it took to
ships.
get it to 100 knots.
Exactly.
How do you get out of the blast pattern? Dropping
I don't
bombs
know.
that low, going that
No
slow. That's
kidding.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they were so low that the blast pattern went above them, you know? So
Yeah.
the shrapnel was actually falling down on top of the
Holy
airplane.
shit! Those guys had to have big, giant gonads.
Yeah. So by the time I was in the P3 or the patrol community, you know, some of us tried very hard in keeping up with that kind of tradition. And and
Would you?
yeah.
Can you expand on that? What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, you know, you guys know because you guys are fighter pilots. The P3 community always had there was a certain stigma as to well they don't fly aggressively, all they do is fly straight and level, they get per diem checks and all that. By the way, when you guys deployed to Iwakuni, didn't you get per diem
No.
I
because you
don't
were
think we
on
did because we were provided housing and
Yeah.
we had to pay for our BOQ rooms, so we'd stay in the BOQ for 6 months, but we had to
Yeah,
pay
but you
for
were
it.
getting per diem.
Well, that's what the per diem was for.
No,
What I'm
wait,
trying-
we didn't get per diem. Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, isn't that something?
that is weird.
It is
I don't
weird.
know.
It is
it
weird.
is.
Yeah.
No, we did have to pay. It was mandatory to be members of the club in Iwakuni, and you had to pay your dues at the
Oh.
club.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to pay
Well, we
rent
had to
at the
do that
BOQ.
too. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. I mean, it was like $6 a night or whatever it was back then.
It was outrageous, is what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. So because of that reputation, you know, a lot of us wanted to, you know, especially being in Jax, you know, Cecil Field Master Jet Base was just 5 miles away or whatever. You guys been to Jax before. We're over at NAS on the river, and Cecil is, you know, 270 radial at 8 DME or whatever. So, you know, we'd run into the, especially the A7 guys. Those guys were cocky as hell. We'd run into them. I had friends, you know, who were the jet guys and stuff. So we wanted to be at the Spindrifter. That was this nightclub. They had something called Officer and a Gentleman Night. Do you guys ever come to Jax? Like on a Thursday
No,
night?
but I want to know about this. This sounds
yeah, this
exciting.
sounds interesting.
I mean, imagine how politically incorrect that is. First of all, right?
Right.
It's you have to show your officer ID card, and if you're an officer, a commissioned officer, it's free cover charge, and then it's 2-for-1s for the whole night.
That sounds dangerous.
It was
Yes, it does.
extremely dangerous. It was a very target-rich environment too.
Oh, I'm sure.
But, oh yeah, all the local, you know, whatever talent was there. But so
Way
you know,
to go,
amongst
Paula.
Very diplomatic.
all the so Tailhook 85, all the A7 guys came back with these T-shirts. It had a picture of a P3 with you know, with the, you know, remember Ghostbusters was big back then. You know, the
Yeah.
red
The big
circle
red.
with the slash.
Yes.
Well, there was a P3 picture of a P3 in it with the circle and a slash, and it said, "Not in my Navy." These were
Wow.
the Tailhook guys.
Whoa.
So we
Yeah, how'd
see
that
him
go
out
over?
in town. I'm like, oh, this is not good. It's probably going to start a couple of brawls, you know, somewhere.
Just a
And
couple.
yeah,
Yeah, why not?
so I came up with this idea, and I never got a T-shirt because the rag instructors ran off and made it happen. But I said we should have a T-shirt too. Should be a picture of a carrier, you know, with the circle and a slash. And so anyway, so a couple of the rag instructors made these T-shirts. It was a circle and a slash with a picture of an aircraft carrier, and it says the VP Navy, money for nothing and chicks for free. I wish I had one of those.
Dire Straits, baby.
That song was big back then too, you know, and MTV was
Yeah.
new and all that. But
Oh, that's
anyway,
awesome.
so because of that, I wanted to fly aggressively. And because it's a combat airplane, it could do a lot. You know, the NATOP's limit for angle of bank was 70 degrees. So, you know, that's about what, 2.5 G for a level 70 degree.
Yeah. Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, 60 degrees is 2 Gs if you're staying at 1 altitude.
Guys in the back were
Yeah,
probably shitting
right.
themselves thinking we're going down.
So
we never
would
do this.
Exactly. So I was doing stuff like, and once I was an aircraft commander, you know, PPC, then I was able to not get vetoed or actually, if I wasn't the plane commander, I couldn't make the decision anyway. But we come back. If it's VFR, I said, let's just call for the, tell them we're coming in for the break. And like, the break, we don't do that, do we? I'm like, why not?
Right.
You learn, you know how to fly the Navy pattern because that's the way we've all been taught. So NAS Jacks, we come in, but NAS Jacks, the pattern altitude was really high. It was like 1,200 feet or something like that. So we come in and do the break and come around and land. So one time we did that, me and my crew, and I think one of the lieutenant commanders saw me doing that and told the skipper, and this was that risk-averse skipper that I was telling you about. And he ended up calling an all pilots meeting, like a AOM the next morning, and to lecture us about it. We don't do that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So whenever we were away, there's no adult supervision. Like we would go down to Puerto Rico for weapons debts and stuff like that. There you go. There was an underwater range down there where we actually practiced attacking submarines. They had we call it a sled, but it was an old World War II Japanese torpedo. And if you guys, read about naval history during World War II, the Japanese had the best torpedoes. They had these things called the Long Lance, and they're basically the size of like a mini sub. But anyway, so they captured, a bunch, I guess, and this particular one was a captured Japanese torpedo that they turned into a underwater drone. And I don't know the technology, back then that allowed it to do that, but it would drive around underwater, and we'd track it and attack it. With the real torpedo. Yeah,
I never thought about how you practice that. That's
and then brilliant. you do it for a score. It was called a Torpex.
Okay,
and so it was about
a moving target though.
Oh yeah. And there's all these ROEs. You had a 3-hour period to kill it 4 times. So you had to log four attacks. So we actually carried 2 torpedoes, and then we had these things called SUSs, and I can't remember what that SUS. It was something you just threw down the free fall chute, and they would make a banging sound underwater, so you could track it. But anyway, so we go to Puerto Rico for that, and usually, there'd be somebody down there from the carrier, air wing, whatever ship.
Yeah.
And they'd be hanging out at the Oak Club right around happy hour time. And you guys ever been down to Rosie Roads in Puerto Rico?
No, one time.
One time, yes. It was a great place. It was as close to the Wild West as we can get back then. And the Oak Club sat on top of this hill. It was a beautiful place. And overlooking the airfield, so I think it was runway 7. If you come in runway 7 for the break, and you break and you come around and you get a little bit deep at the 90, you come off the 180 all dirtied up and everything. And then if you get a little bit deep and low at the 90, you're right on top of the Oak Club.
Nice.
So we would do that.
Oh, yeah.
And we see all the guys in their flight suits. Oh, absolutely.
Big, I can see we got a problem child with us here. He was already told we don't do the break in this Navy, but he's out doing it anyway.
Hey, was the airfield on the west end of the island?
West? No, it was on the southeastern tip. So it was on so San Juan's on the north coast
of Puerto. Yeah, San Juan's northeast.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rosie Rose was on the southeast side. Okay. Oh, Aguadillo. That's on the west. That's on the west end. Aguadillo is where.
Yes.
Also known as Barranquin. Quick funny story about Barranquin. I was going down to Barranquin one time. My wife, then fiance, I got called out on reserve to go down there, and I left her a voicemail on the cell phone, and she's like. She's in the van. She's a sandwich girl at Delta Airlines at the time. She's in the van going, he's going, it sounded like he said he was going drinking for 3 days.
No, I'm going to Barranquin.
Barranquin for 3 days. Going drinking and Barranquin for 3 days.
Which wasn't completely untrue.
No, that's true.
Yeah. That's right. So
there's Rosie.
Right. Oh, there's a picture of Rosie Rhodes on the.
Yeah, so you could probably see the Oak Club on top of the hill. over there.
Okay.
You get
Nice.
low and deep at the 90. You're right on top of the O Club.
Very
Excellent.
nice.
Excellent photo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sticks.
Very good. But anyway, so we used to do crap like that, and I would get chewed out every once in a while. Never lost my papers, but the thing was, they never pulled it. They needed me too badly. So I ended up getting extended. So 87, we went to Sigonella, and the only time I ever loaded out with live weapons was during that deployment, and it was our president at the time was Ron Reagan, and he had a problem with the leader of Libya at the time. And, El Dorado Canyon in 86 failed to get him. So in 87, we were trying to, I guess, get him to come out and play, but he wouldn't because, Gaddafi was too smart. So we had, there's always a carrier in the Mediterranean, right? In the Sixth Fleet. So when they swap out, they'd operate together for like 2 weeks. And, when they swap out, and the Saratoga was leaving, and the Coral Sea, I'm dating myself now, right? Think about these ships.
Yeah,
they're all oil burners.
All these ships are razor blades now.
Oh, they are.
I think
razor
I
blades.
shaved with the Coral Sea yesterday.
So, and the Coral Sea had it was the very first all Hornet air wing. So they didn't have, they didn't have A7s or anything. It was all Hornets.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah, it was the very first one. And then the Saratoga had a more classic air wing. So they had, they still had A7s on board, I think, but they had Tomcats, A7s, A6s, et cetera, et cetera. And VS-30, their S3 squadron, they were kind of our sister squadron, and we operated together a lot. And they had a great bunch of guys, and we had a wonderful time, doing very professional things. It was pretty cool. But anyway, you can imagine. So that's the only time so they were working together, and the USS Iowa, the battleship, they were in the Med at the time too.
Oh, yeah.
So it looked like, they're all anchored in Syracuse Bay. And you could see it when you're on final going into SIG. And I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like something out of, World War II movie or something like that. It was really cool. So they drove into the Gulf of Sidra, right up to the line of death. And they started doing live firing exercises, not to cross the line, but they were shooting stuff over the line, because we only recognize the standard 12 miles, international waters.
Yeah, they weren't recognizing the line of death.
No, they were not. So we were tasked with
to recognize it later.
Triple S battle group support. And we're in the ops center during the briefing. And at the end of the comm briefing, the briefing officer said, so your downed aircraft procedures are, and I was like, downed aircraft? What the hell are they talking about? And that was the first clue. Then we went to maintenance control to sign for the airplane. And then they said, oh, yeah, the duty driver would drive you out to the airplane. And we never did that, because our airplanes usually just sat right there on the flight line. We walked out to it. But the duty driver had to drive us around, because the airplane's over at the hot spot where they load live weapons.
Oh, live weapons.
So we drove out there, and holy crap, there's a P3 sitting there with 2 harpoons hanging on the wings. And the bomb bay's open with a bunch of, remove before flight flags, tags.
Yeah.
So I did my pre-flight, looked into the bomb bay. There were 4 torpedoes hanging in there, live ones.
Wow.
I was like,
you guys
holy
weren't,
crap, we're actually going to, this is almost like
fucking around.
war.
Yeah.
Well, so the objective was, so our mission, we were on the Benghazi side of the Gulf of Sidra.
Okay.
And the Libyan Navy had, I think they had like 4 Foxtrot class diesel submarines. They're Russian submarines,
right,
which is basically like World War II technologies. They'd spend most of their time on the surface, to charge their batteries and
breathing
stuff
and charging.
Right. But if a diesel submarine goes sinker, they're really hard to find, because they're quiet. Once it's on, electric motors, you can't hear them. So the battle group commander was super nervous that, these guys are going to get underway. So they said, the briefing was, you guys are, you guys are free to shoot if even one line comes off the pier to get this thing underway, because we don't want that thing anywhere near our battle group.
Yeah.
Wow,
So get
wow,
it
that
on
was
the
pretty good.
surface before it
That was
sinks.
good
I'm like,
ROE.
yeah, I'm like Sierra
Yeah.
Hotel. I'm ready to do this. As a brand new aircraft commander, I'm like, yeah, let's go get some air medals.
I think about it though. Trying to go weapons tight and lose an aircraft carrier. You do not want to be that keg.
No,
No,
no.
you
Hence
don't.
the
Oops.
hence the ROE right there. Holy shit.
Yeah. So we launched, and we're flying. We're doing so our patrol altitude was probably somewhere around 700 feet or something like that. So we're flying along. It was daylight, and my ESM operator, so he's an enlisted guy in the back. He's like, "Hey, we're picking up, whatever the search radar was, the Soviet-made search radar at the time." And then I can't remember the NATO code word for the fire control radar for the SA-2. So that thing came on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't high PRF yet, but it came on. And he goes, "Holy shit. I think they might be locked on us." I'm like, crap. So, you dive the thing down to 200 feet, firewall the throttles, you put, whatever the emitter is on your 6, and you run away as bravely as possible. That was our defensive maneuver in a P3.
He was
So
mighty
that was
Sir Robin. He bravely ran away.
I did. So that was the end of my, the only mission that I had live weapons on our airplane.
Oh man.
But
Yeah. So
another
high
cool thing we
PRF
used to do-
is pulse repetition frequency units to tell you when they're getting ready to launch a missile, basically at you. So,
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Well,
High
good
PRF.
plan to run away and fight another day, because
That is a good plan.
you don't have the weapons to deal with that.
No, we don't. And we didn't have the
that's-
maneuverability to, you can't
No.
jink in a P3,
No, it's
especially
like bringing
down
a
at
club to a
700
gunfight.
feet.
Can't do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So
But the
man.
other cool thing we did in the airplane was, so that SIG deployment, we'd come out, and usually before the beginning or the end of a normal ASW patrol, well, back then it was Soviet Union. The Russians were the Soviets, and everything, in that theater of operations was NATO. So we could pull into all the Western European ports, like whether it's Italy or, the French Riviera or Spain or whatever. But, and even Africa. So Egypt was on our side, and, Turkey and Greece were part of NATO. But the Soviets could not. So the only friendly port that they had was Dubrovnik in Croatia, which was Yugoslavia at the time.
Okay.
But that's up in the Adriatic, so they basically trapped themselves if they went up there. So all it was a, it was a military presence thing. So that's why our carrier was there, and they spent most of their time in port. So they pull out of Cannes and go into Saint Tropez, and they pull out of there, and now they're in Monaco, and they're having a great time. But the pilots didn't like it because they start losing their currency, and then they pull out just long enough to requal everybody and pull back into port. So the Russians didn't have the luxury to do that. So they would anchor off a country that were not unfriendly to them. So like Tunisia was one of them, and there's a like a bay, like a gulf on I guess that would be the east coast of Tunisia, called the Gulf of Hammamet. It's near, the ancient Carthage is, where.
Right.
But anyway, so they would go and they anchor in there just to save fuel money, right? Because instead of steaming. So the Saratoga Battle Group was transiting from the western side of the Med to the East Med over towards Israel, more in Syria. And so I was on the ready alert, and they launched me because they said, go to Hammamet and see if the Slava is there. Well, the Slava is that Russian cruiser that just got sunk, or a year ago or 2 years ago, got sunk by the Ukrainians, that first one that they sank.
Okay. Yeah.
With all those missiles, up and down.
Yeah.
and it was named something different now, but back then it was the Slava class, and it was supposed to be the carrier killer with all those cruise missiles. So Sixth Fleet wanted to know, and that was the quickest way to get intel for, Sixth Fleet, instead of, they didn't have, I don't know. Anyway, to get eyeballs on it, we flew a P3 over there, get eyeballs on it, report it. And that was the quickest way. Yeah, right off the coast there. So basically the way we did that was we launched at a SIG, and you chop VFR, due regard. And we turned south, or on the south coast of the southern coast of Sicily. You have to avoid Malta, because Malta didn't like us flying through their, TCA or whatever, class B airspace. And then we'd come in at like 500 feet. We cruise along at 500 feet, stay underneath their radar, the Russian radar. And then when we get about 20 miles outside of the Gulf of Hammond, we pop up to 1,000 feet, light off our radar, take a sweep, and then get a plot of where all the contacts are, and then drop back down to 200 feet. And in the meantime, I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, there's a ship here, there's a ship here, there's a ship here. So if we come in from the south, and then make one pass, because you don't want to make more than, like, you don't want to do too many passes, otherwise they'll say you're harassing us, and it's, the ROE and all that.
Yeah.
And then
kind of like the Russians used to do to our ships all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway,
Multiple.
so I'm coming in, and then there was a VHF frequency, kind of like in the North Atlantic, where you could talk cockpit to cockpit.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we had
common.
Yeah, we had one of those unofficial frequencies up, and so you always, you want to announce, hey, U.S. Navy P3, south to north at 200 feet.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, I didn't hear anything. It looks like we're alone. So I came sweeping by, and all of a sudden I see this big green blob, like this olive green, like light olive green blob, go flashing under my nose. So I'm at 200 feet. So this guy's below me, right?
Ooh, okay, that's low.
And I'm like, what the hell was that? It was a British RAF Nimrod. So,
Oh, yeah.
Nimrod is
Yes.
the four
Yeah.
engine.
I bet Styx will find one
based on
too.
the
But yeah.
Comet. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys and the Brits, they're flying like we're still flying in the Battle of Britain.
Yeah.
Those guys were awesome. I love working with those guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he goes flying by. Then all of a sudden I hear on the radio, "Sorry about that, chaps. I didn't see you coming."
Oh, shit.
I'm like, crap. That scared the crap out of me. So anyway, needless to say, there was no Slava. It was gone. There's the Nimrod.
That's not a small
And-
airplane either.
No, it was bigger than the P3. That thing's about the size of a 727, I think.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And you were at 200 and he came by below you.
Below me. So he was probably, only, I don't know, he's probably at 100 feet, whatever. But so we started a search. So if it's not there, then go north up through the Straits of Sicily and find this thing before it finds the Saratoga Battle Group. And so we're flying north. I think something like 500 feet was an optimal altitude for our surface search radar, and then and there's all kinds of, the Mediterranean's got a lot of commercial traffic. So there's merchant ships all over the place. And we get a contact. We go, no, that's not him. Come over here. No, that's not him. We come over here. And the flight engineer sits right in the middle between the two pilots. And his seat, he could raise up. So he had a pair of binoculars and he's looking like this. And we found it. It's like, that's a Soviet. And so we came up close to it. That's a Slava. And looked like something right out of a Navy recruiting poster. This thing had spray. It was going flank speed, kicking up a big rooster tail,
Wow.
Nice.
bow smashing through the waves, and this spray coming back like this. It was really cool looking. And we went flying by at 200 and got a good fix on him and sent to whoever needs to know where this guy was. So I'm sure they launched a couple of A6s or A7s off the Sarah to come.
Say
Go
hello.
spend some time visiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
That's
let him
awesome.
know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
speaking
these are
of
some
flight engineers,
fantastic stories. We've got to get some more of those coming along. Just a couple quick terms. Sticks put it up there. Due regard basically means you're on your own. Oh man, there was another one in there too. You just talked about, and I missed, and now it slipped my mind. Don't get old; it's bad for your memory, Fig.
ROE.
ROE, rules
oh
of
yeah,
engagement.
rules of
Yeah.
engagement. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any others? Yeah. Anyway, so
So-
these are some great stories. I know you got a couple more, but the way we're able to bring these great stories to you is through supporters through on Patreon and our advertisers. And we've had an advertiser with us for about 7 or 8 weeks now, which is Flight Training International. These guys are awesome. So Fig and I want to tell you about them, and then we'll continue with some more great stories.
Hey everyone, today we're diving into something that all you aspiring airline pilots and those needing an ATP or a type certificate will want to tune into. Flight Training International, or FTIratings.com. Since its inception in 1993, FTI has been dedicated to elevating the standards of pilot training.
That's right, Fig, but FTI isn't your ordinary flight school. It's a veteran-founded institution that's all about delivering high-quality and cost-effective training across a wide spectrum of airliners. From the Airbus to Boeing simulators, their training covers it all, and these simulators mimic the exact conditions you'll face in the real world.
Yeah, these simulators are no joke. They're the same full-motion, FAA-certified beasts used by all the major airlines all over the world. This means every training session isn't just a lesson, it's a real-world experience. Plus, the instructors have been where you are. Transitioning from military jets to commercial airliners is smoother than ever.
And the credentials these instructors bring to the table are impeccable. We're talking about professional pilots with previous military experience and decades of flying commercial airliners around the globe. They're here to guide you, to teach you, and to ensure that you're ready to handle everything from transatlantic crossings to tight landings at bustling international airports.
FTI also offers special programs like ATP CTP, which stands for Airline Transport Pilot Certification Training Program. That's been mandated by Congress to ensure pilots are thoroughly prepared for the demands of modern aviation. And the best part, all this can be accessed from wherever you are, thanks to their innovative training materials available on your iPad.
Nice. And because we love giving our listeners the best deals, here's one just for you. Mention So There I Was when you sign up for your first course at FTI and get a sweet $100 off. Whether you're a seasoned pilot looking to up your skills or a military aviator aiming for the commercial skies, FTI is your launching pad.
So what are you waiting for? Check out FTIratings.com. That's FTIratings.com. Join the ranks of their esteemed alumni, including pilots from the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and even the FAA. If they trust FTI, you can too.
Absolutely, Fig. And don't forget that you can use your veterans benefits to pay for the cost of FTI.
Boom.
So gear up, check your avionics, and prepare for takeoff. Go to FTIratings.com and get started today. Your future as a top-tier airline pilot starts at Flight Training International. That's why FTIratings.com is the best option for you. Don't just fly, soar with FTI. Oh, man. Thanks to FTI for supporting this show, guys. We really appreciate your patronage. And if you're thinking about it, there's no better way to do it. Just Fig and I said, go do that. Hey, so Swede, you have a thing in a note that you sent to me, and it was talking about, and if this isn't the right time, then we'll circle back to it if you want to stay on deployments. But you talk about being a 3P and a P3.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So what's all that about? And then you're talking about doing V1 cuts. I didn't know you guys did V1 cuts in the airplane. What are you, nuts? We'll talk about that too. But
Well, we only had one simulator in Jacksonville, and it was very, primitive, just to say the least.
There you go.
It was a good mock-up of the cockpit. That was about it, and you could shoot instrument approaches. But anyway, the 3P is a third pilot. So the crew of the P3 had three pilots assigned. A tactical crew had PPC, plane commander. The 2P, which is a second pilot, he's fully NATOPS qualified, but not yet an aircraft commander and then you have your 3P, who is a nobody. Literally, you're not even NATOPS qualified yet. So when you first check, I mean, I guess most
saying sit there and be quiet.
Yeah, I guess most Navy Marine Corps aviators out of the RAG, you come out with the NATOPS rating, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So not in the P3 Navy.
No shit.
You come out, yeah. You've been trained and you got so many hours in the P3 now, but you're nothing yet, and you get your NATOPS qualification once you get your fleet squadron. But anyway, so you basically have to carry all the gear to the airplane, and one of them is the Agiflight camera, which was in this
the walk of shame
thing. Yeah, and then there are two NFOs. You have the tactical coordinator and the NAVCOM, the navigator communicator.
Okay.
And so the NFO starts as a navigator, and he has a comm bag, with all the crypto and everything in it. But unlike a bunkie on, the airplanes that we fly in the commercial airlines, the relief pilot at least has a nice jump seat, right? Has a crew station.
Yeah.
The 3P didn't even have that.
What?
So
What?
the radar RT, the what do you call it? The transmitter sat in this cabinet in the cockpit, right behind the pilot seat and left seat. And so on top of that, the guys in the paraloft would they put together like a vinyl cushion, with some foam rubber in it, so you could sit on it. That's where the 3P sat.
No.
But the only thing is, every third mission, if you're operating as a crew, usually on deployments or DETs, every third flight, you got a takeoff and landing. So in the P3, we always flew it from the left seat. So as this nobody, unqualified dude, you could be in the left seat for the takeoff and landing, and the plane commander just has to be over in the right seat. So that's how we did it. So I hated being a 3P, and I just couldn't wait to at least become a 2P,
Well, how long did that take? How long did that transition take, or how long did it take to get a guy qualified?
Well, the qualification happened like within just like 3 months or something like that. It's just a matter of,
Okay, so it
wasn't
wasn't overly brutal, but it was
right. But
it was your place type.
Yes, but you're assigned to a crew, so your crew position as a 3P, even if you started getting more hours and whatnot, that may last for like a whole year.
Oh shit!
Because you have you have your 6-month deployment, or you have your workups prior to that, then you go away for 6 months, and during those 6 months you stay together as a crew, and so forth. So anyway, so it was not fun. I remember during that period, it was the only time that I really regretted the choice that I made in going, P3s, because I just got into Jacksonville, and I'm driving around getting the lay of the land, and so I decided to drive over to Cecil Field, see what's going on over there, and I'm driving along the hangars, and I hear lots of jet noise, and I look, and there's there's 4 F-18s taking off. And they're just pulling up into the vertical at the, all 4 of them, one at a time. So there's 4 of them stacked up in a vertical going up, busting out of the Class B airspace out the top.
Yep.
I was like, damn, did I make the wrong choice? It really seemed that way at the time.
You could have done that. You simply chose not to. That's all.
Now you said, hey, Swede, you said the 3P had to carry some camera. So was that a classified camera type thing?
No,
it
wasn't classified, but it was a handheld. Technologically, it was probably just better than World War II. But it was a handheld camera. I can't even remember what the what do you call it, size was. It was much bigger than a 35 millimeter. It was a very specific reconnaissance type film that they used.
May have been a 70. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, whenever we flew, we're looking for ships and whatnot. We had a little.
I wonder if that shot, we go back to the shot of the P3 and the bear. I wonder if that
Yeah.
was
See
taken with one of those.
see that little window behind the pilot's seat, pilot's
Yeah.
window?
Yes.
That is a flat, no curvature in that. So it's a photo.
So it doesn't distort any photos.
Exactly. It was a specific window for that camera. So you got your hand holding that, and it's the ordnanceman that usually did the operated the camera. So the 3P just had to carry it out there because it was heavy and pain in the ass.
It was just part of the
Of course.
harassment.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with
So,
that.
and I don't mean it in a pejorative. It's just my observation in my encounters when I was active duty with the P3 guys. Those were the guys that were more worried about, how many rivets on the engine to sell, how many static wicks, that kind of stuff. But there were exceptions to that rule. I mean, like I said, I think I told you in the pre-show chat, and I've told it on the show here before about Jimmy Sins, who was an amazing CO. And, he was definitely not like that. He was a P3 guy, but, just salt of the earth, great guy and a wonderful leader. So that, but it was just kind of my impression that the more crew members you had, the more let's screw with the other guy attitude.
Yeah.
Well, it was
which goes to that whole 3P thing. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you're nothing. You sit on the cushion in the back and don't bother us. We'll give you a landing every now and then.
Exactly. The crew members, as long as they threw a slur in there every once in a while, they could tell you whatever as a 3P.
With all due respect, sir, and then here it comes, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're fucked
That
up.
was the shittiest landing I've ever seen. Yeah. So along those lines, a quick story. My one of my favorite flight engineers, first of all, were enlisted guys, and they were all of some kind of aviation maintenance rates, whether they're aviation electricians, structural mechanics, or engine mechanics, whatever.
That was a prerequisite for them
Yes.
to even get selected to be a flight engineer, right?
Yeah, and then
Yes.
they go through, air crew school and then flight engineer school. So, but they were sort of, how I don't know, probably in the Marine Corps they didn't have that, but in Navy, if you stray away from your specialty, even as an aviator, even as an officer, if you end up doing something that's not in your warfare specialty, then that's actually detrimental to your career progression.
Yeah, it's hard to get a squadron command and that kind of stuff.
Exactly, that kind of stuff. So for the enlisted guys, if you were, say, an jet engine mechanic, an AD, and you were a flight engineer, so you're no longer in the shop working with, under a chief or whatever, then it's going to be harder for you to make chief because you're still making, chief petty officer promotions in that rate, right?
Sure.
So we had a lot of guys who are stuck at E6, and in the Navy, that's a huge jump going from E6 to E7 because, even your uniform changes. You go from a petty officer to being a chief petty officer who wears khakis, right? Just like the officers. But anyway, it's a big deal. So I had, when I was a 3P, so I was a fledgling P3 guy, and I just wanted to fly, get me in that seat so I could fly. And so it was my turn to fly, and we're coming back from a patrol, and we're coming into Bermuda. And the way we did that was we'd file a flight plan for like 50 miles, and then we'd chop VFR. So we'd file an en route delay. Remember how you do that on a DD-175?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'd file an en route delay for like 8+00 hours, right? And then we recover at that same point.
An 8-hour
So
delay. You're good.
that's how we did it. So, we come back, then we turn everything on, transponders and everything. And then we call Bermuda approach or Bermuda center or whatever. Hey, we're here, and, clearance back to Bermuda. And then they said, descend and maintain, whatever, 1,000. So I clicked the autopilot off, and I grabbed all 4 power levers, and I just slammed them to idle, and I pushed the nose over. And then I feel this vice-like grip on my right arm, and it's the engineer sitting back there. His name was JT, and he was a first-class terminal E6, first-class petty officer. And he goes,
Terminal.
Yeah. He grabs my arm. He goes, "Sir, you do that again, I'm going to take you out behind a hangar and I'm going to kick your little pilot ass." I'm like, holy crap, what did I
Hey,
do?
hey, hey,
You
hey!
know?
At least he said, "Sir."
Yeah. What did I?
What did I do? I'm sorry, you know?
Yeah. What
And
did I
well, the
do?
thing was, Chuck, you flew, or Fig, you flew C-130s.
Yeah.
Remember NTS and
Oh yeah, yeah.
pitch
We had the
lock and
same
all
motors.
that?
We had the same motors
Right.
and the same props. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
they're just
totally
the
get it.
P3s. They turned them upside down and stuck them on top of the wing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh
That
no,
is
I get
exactly
it.
right.
So you
So
so
if
you
you,
start
if
NTSing
you,
on those motors.
right, if you have too
Props.
fast of a, power lever movement, you could, the props basically slam him back to flat pitch, and it could
Negative
think
torque.
that, right,
NTS is negative torque sensing or system, right?
yeah, something
Ah.
like that, where the prop is actually driving the engine instead of the other way around. So it's not a good thing. So that's what he was getting at. So he said, you have
Oh.
to be gentle with those power levers. I was like, oh crap. But it was funny. He goes, "I'll take you out behind a hangar and kick your little
Kick your little
pilot
pilot
ass."
ass.
Love that guy.
Well, at
His
least he didn't say
story
fat
was,
pilot ass. You know, you're
Yeah.
good. You're still in shape.
Yeah.
he said that guy was, so this was 1986. He enlisted into the Navy in 1967 to
Holy
avoid
sh-
draft.
Holy
And
shit.
still an E6. Wow.
Right. He
gosh.
thought, well, if I'm on a Navy ship, at least nobody be shooting at me. Well, so he went to aircrew school. Well, he went to A school as a aviation electrician. They sent him to aircrew school. And then they assigned him so he gets his orders. And he was telling me this story one day.
Yeah.
He gets his orders and it says, HAL 3, Helicopter Light Attack Squadron 3. He goes, what the
No.
heck is that? And where are they? Oh, they're down in South Vietnam in the
They're
Mekong
in Da
Delta.
Nang.
So, yeah. So he was, HAL
Yes.
3 was the solitary Navy Huey gunship squadron. And they operated with the swift boats and the PBRs and stuff like that
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the Brown Water Navy and the rivers down there. And so he was hanging out the side of a Huey with an M60 as a 17-year-old.
Yeah,
This
and
guy
he,
was-
he enlisted
was
in
like-
the Navy so he wouldn't get shot at.
Exactly.
That didn't work out so
They were-
good.
All three. He
Yeah.
was, oh, what a gem that guy was. He was cool. And he taught me a lot, taught me a lot about. They always say you're going to learn the most from your senior enlisted, and I sure as hell did.
Boy, you got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Was that from Apocalypse Now? How can you shoot women and children?
You just don't lead him as much.
Yeah, just don't lead them as much. Yeah. Hanging out the
PBR
door
big
of a
sky.
Huey.
PBR big sky.
He actually JT had a story very similar to that.
Really?
And, yeah. But I was going to segue from there to so fast forward to now 1989. I'm the plane commander, and I was senior to my TACO, so they made me the mission commander, which was crazy. But so I was in charge of all of that. So every time we went out on patrol, I was literally matching wits with the Sean Connery character from Hunt for
Oh,
Red
yeah.
October.
Red
Right,
October.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
the
U-boat
Soviet-
commander.
That's right. The Soviet submarine commanders down there. And so the way,
He's going to do a
happened
crazy
was-
Ivan.
yeah, exactly. So, that book came out when we were out on deployment
Yeah.
and doing the stuff. So the only thing that Clancy really didn't get into was what the P3s did. So we, we're reading that book like crazy Ivan. Where the hell did he get that? Because I
Right.
mean, yeah, that's like industry lingo, So what happens is, or I should say, back then, all the main Soviet nuclear submarines were in their North Fleet, which is all based on the Kola Peninsula,
Okay.
which is
Right.
northern in the Bering Sea,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
the one on the
Oh,
Soviet side.
Yeah.
And then they deployed to the Med because we had a carrier there all the time. So they had to have a missile shooter to neutralize a carrier. So in order to get there, they had to transit all the way down to North Atlantic and pass by places like Keflavik and Scotland and Lodges. And then they go into through the Straits of Gibraltar into the Med. And it was, like I said, it was mainly a presence thing. So because he was there, we'd have a fast attack nuke in the Med, or multiple. And we have an entire P3 squadron in Sigonella, dedicated to keeping track of that guy. So because of that, they have a fast attack submarine. So there's, how it builds up, and it's a cat and mouse thing going on. So during our 89 deployment, we were tasked with tracking the southbound transitors, so that we know exactly when, or I should say the JCS level, they know exactly when the Russian submarine enters the Mediterranean. Then, then there's a count of how many days. So they're all our, if you guys fly transatlantic, all our ETOPS alternates, those are all P3.
Oh, yeah.
deployments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were, one time we were out there, and, the two flight engineers on my crew were together. They had over 20,000 hours.
Oh my gosh.
In a P3, which is tremendous for a Navy career, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Those guys, that's all they did was fly. They went from fleet squadron to fleet squadron, back to the RAG to the fleet squadron, whatever. So we would
could probably build the damn airplane in their sleep.
Yeah. So the way it worked, so as this guy was transiting down from there, like off the coast of Scandinavia, the Norwegians would fly on them. They had P3s. Then as they entered the U.S. sector, our guys out of Keflavik would be on top of them. And then the Brits, the RAF would take over. This is the same target as he's transiting. The RAF would take over out of Scotland. The French may or may not participate, so you never know. So a lot of times they end up going unlocated. So the continuity of contact usually, gets severed in the French sector. And then the U.S. sector, again, is out of lodges when we take over. So, but we'd find them, and we have continuous contact. And in order to have continuous contact, you have to be relieved on station by your relief. So both airplanes have to be there at the same time.
Right.
And with a buoy in the water in contact. Right. So you have to wait. And if your relief is late for whatever reason, you got to start counting drops of fuel and go, holy cow, how much longer can we stay out here? How much further can we pull the power back? So we always shut down number one engine to save fuel, because once you're on station, it's now, pounds of fuel is fuel flow per.
Yeah. So why number one? Why not 2 or 3 or 4?
It was actually good question. It was designed that way. Number one engine was designed to be shut down, so it had no accessories on it. There's no generator, no nothing on it.
Oh, no kidding. All right.
Okay.
You didn't
So it was
lose
just for takeoff and landing, and then you could shut it down and save fuel.
That's exactly right. But in the max range curve, so for fuel calculations getting home, the max range, 3-engine max range curve was pretty much the same as the 4-engine max range curve. It's just that it was at a lower altitude and slower speed. So take you longer to get home, but you could do it with the same amount of fuel, basically. So,
and there was a pic. Sticks just had a picture of. I don't know if you saw it there. Swede.
Yeah, I actually took that one.
So explain why the props straight like that too. When you're
feathered, right into the airstream.
So the flat face of the prop is not pointing into the wind. It's
correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
it stops spinning, right? It stops
That's right.
spinning.
Yeah.
So it's less drag. There's no drag, really.
Right.
Once it stops.
Once it stops. So if it's flat pitch, then it would be like a speed brake. It would actually be drag as opposed to not.
Yeah.
So anyway, so one day we're out there.
Drag is bad.
And if there's icing, you cannot shut down your engine because because it'll ice up, right? So, which is now you got all 4 engines running. You got engine anti-ice on. You're throwing the wing, the wing heat on every once in a while to break the ice and all that. So so we had, I would say it was pretty close to severe icing. but we had to be there because
never good.
we were in contact with the sub, with the Soviet.
Yeah.
So we couldn't leave. And I was like, crap, when's the relief going to get here? So he's not going to be here for another hour, And I had on the unheated part of the windshield, I had about an inch of rime ice on the unheated part of the
No
windshield.
shit. Oh.
Yeah. So I'm looking
Which
back
means
at
there's a lot of other parts of your airplane that's got an inch of ice on it.
Oh yeah. And then
the
the
tail.
wing heat, the wing anti-ice was thermal, right?
Yeah.
Like on a large airliner. So our technique was you let the ice build on the leading edges, then you dump it, you turn it on, it heats up, it breaks it off, then you turn it off again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what you're trying to prevent is the flow back, right? So if the leading edges are warm, the precip's going to hit it and then flow back, and then it'll freeze on top of the wing where you can't touch it. So anyway, so we're in that kind of condition, and we're tracking the guy, and the tacho or the sensor operator goes, he's turning, target's turning. So tacho gives me this steer to the left. He's like, come around over here. Let's drop a buoy over here. So I roll into a just over 30 degrees angle of bank, and the airplane goes, it starts.
Shit.
Falling.
What altitude were you at?
We were about 1,500 feet, maybe.
Holy
And
shit.
Yeah, so our freezing level went all the way down, almost to the surface
There's
of North Atlantic. and
there
North
is
Atlantic.
no room for error then.
So I'm like, holy crap. And IMC, mind you. So, we're completely in the goo. And so that was an interesting lesson learned. So then we finally got relieved. We turned over, we made a hot contact, or hot turnover, as they call it. That's something you always want to do. And so we started climbing out of the goo. And once we got, once we're clear and we're in the clear, the engineer reaches up and, he turns off the engine anti-ice switches. And one of them, I can't remember which engine, I think it was number 4, the light wouldn't go out. So the light is the engine anti-ice light is not a valve position light, but it's a thermal sensor, right? So if you turn the switch off and you see a torque drop, shaft horsepower drop, that means, or shaft horsepower increase, I'm sorry, then that means that the valve closed because you're bleeding air off of it, right? But if the light is on, then that means there's still heat going out to it somehow. So it's still sensing heat, which means you may have a bleed air leak, which means you have to shut down the engine. So we're like, oh man. So I said, okay, E-handle number 4. So he shut it down. So long story short, we were the heroes because, we made a hot turnover, ice all over the airplane, number 4 feathered, like, we took some battle damage or something like that, and then returned back to Lodges with good intel. So that was cool. Went up to the O Club, of course.
Yeah. So, and let me back up just a little bit. So what you were describing earlier is you were in the turn and the airplane is starting to buffet, and that's the airplane telling you, hey, I'm about to fall out of the sky because my aerodynamics is not nice and clean like the airplane was designed to be. I got shit all over me, and I'm just going to quit. And when you hit the water, it's several hundred knots. Good luck.
Self-critiquing. Yeah. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you didn't die, Swede. You used a term. Hey, you used a term that I don't know that we've covered. JC. You said talking about the JCS level. JCS.
Oh yeah.
level.
Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Okay. There you
So
go.
I mean, Pentagon.
This is high level.
Right, real high level. So we got tasked with some JCS level stuff. Most of it had to do with intelligence, surveillance type stuff. So one of them was, we circumnavigate Cuba. So that was out of Jacksonville. We'd go south, and we'd fly around Cuba to see how they reacted to certain things. And at the aircraft commander board, the PPC board, it's usually the skipper is the chairman, and then you have a couple of lieutenant commander types and a couple of,
Sure.
JO IPs, and they're grilling you and all these things. And one of the questions, it's the final question at the end, and it's this gouge. It's like, never land in a communist country.
Yes.
That's
Oh, yeah.
all there's
Right.
to it.
Yeah.
You just
Yes.
never land in it's gouge. And they try to get you to, so they paint a
Ouch.
scenario.
Yeah,
They're
it's
gonna,
good.
Okay,
Good gouge.
Yeah.
all right, now, Swede. So you're doing it's called a PARPRO mission, Peacetime Aero Reconnaissance Program or something like that around Cuba. So you're on a PARPRO around Cuba, 30 miles off the coast, and all of a sudden you get fire warning, number 3. What are you going to do? So you start reciting the procedures, E-handle 2 or E-handle 3, HRD discharge.
All the immediate actions, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah,
But,
he goes, okay, I know. We know you know that. What are you going to do now? Well, is a fire. Oh, check for second. We know you're going to do that. Fire's not out. It's still burning. It's going to burn off your wing. What are you going to do? Well, I guess
I'm ditching that son of a bitch is what I'm doing.
I'm going to turn north towards Key West. And I was, no. You don't have time to do all that. Havana Airport's right there at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, land it. You got your
Go to
on final,
Havana.
basically for Havana.
With all the secret equipment on, go to Havana.
Exactly. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
that's
sir,
what I'm trying to
I'm
get you
gonna
to
go
say.
that way. Well, the wind's starting off now. What are you going to do? You're going to die. Well, okay, then let's get ready to ditch. That's
Yeah.
okay. Good.
Prepare for ditching, gentlemen.
That's what you're supposed to do.
So that just triggered a thought. I don't know what year it was. This was probably a long time ago, but in my mind, it was like a week ago. There was a midair, right? There was a Chinese fighter.
It was
had a
Easter
midair,
2001.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
and the P3 diverted into a Chinese. Was it? It was
New
Chinese, right?
Chinese airport.
Yeah, and that was that,
Yep.
right? Didn't they keep the
That
plane
was- oh, yeah. Well, they gave it back after they took it apart. But that was
after they reverse engineered all
So,
this shit?
yeah, that EP3 had much more intel stuff than
A lot
we
more
did,
classified crap on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
we were all, not to Monday morning quarterback the thing, I think, but I
Except he was
remember-
all fucked up.
I remember calling my P3 buddies and going, "Aren't you supposed to ditch? Didn't they tell us we're supposed to ditch?" But anyway, so yeah, that
we
did
weren't
happen.
there. We weren't there, so we don't know.
Uh-huh.
Maybe he tried to ditch. Maybe they were trying to ditch and they accidentally hit the airport and stopped.
Yeah. Whoops.
Maybe.
I'm in a
Oh.
ditch. And they ran out of room to ditch and they actually slid onto the air. That's what happened. Come on.
Okay,
There you go.
That's what happened.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We've been going at this quite a bit here. We're a little over an hour and a half now, and
Oh my gosh,
I want
okay.
to circle back to what you opened with.
Oh, yeah.
Going through 6,000 feet in a spin.
In a spin.
Ruh-roh.
Now, I'm assuming you had a student in the front seat, maybe?
Oh, I was solo, so I was doing FCF.
Well, let's
Even
talk
worse.
about. Oh, on an FCF, you were spinning, and was it just to make sure it was rigged right?
Yeah. that's
Tell
part
the
of
story. I'm going to get out of the way.
part
Tell
of
the
it.
story.
So, okay. So as a T-34 instructor, to get any kind of solo time, you have to become a maintenance pilot, right? So they just wouldn't let you take an
Oh.
airplane out by yourself unless
Sure.
you're a student. So
You got to be
so
productive.
that's the whole reason why I became a maintenance pilot. And so I was doing a whatever card that was that you did after the rigging was touched,
Okay.
whatever, if it's a
Yeah.
flight control thing. So that's one of the tests you have to do is make sure the airplane stays in in what they call an erect spin. You guys remember that
Yeah.
term? I don't know.
So like a
Remember it?
steady
Opposed to a
state
flat
spin.
spin.
Yeah.
It says erect meaning up.
Yes.
You know,
Upright, not upside down.
blue
not
side up, not brown
Yeah.
side up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what you do is you have to test it both ways. So you get up to I think it was like 10,000 feet. You get into the spin up there, and then you get the airplane spinning, and then once you feel that it's stabilized in the spin, you have to let go of the controls to make sure that the airplane stays in it, and then you put the anti-spin control.
You would think
inputs in
you would
and
want
get
it to come out when you let go of the controls. Just saying. You would think.
Yeah. There's that beautiful
Well,
T-34
the Turbo
Charlie
Mentor.
Mentor.
Oh yeah, that thing was, man, I had a blast flying that
I did
thing.
too.
airplane.
I thought it was a great plane to fly.
Oh yeah. So so I started to say I went, so it was a right spin, and so to to get out of the spin, stick slightly forward to neutral and full left rudder to get out of the opposite rudder to get out of the spin, right? And then you recover, neutralize, recover. So the next time I had to go left. So I went back to 10,000 feet, got into a left spin. So now we're spinning left, let go of the controls. Everything looks fine. Okay, recover. Left rudder, because that's what I did the last time, right?
Yes.
Holy shit, it's not coming out. I'm like, left rudder. What the heck's wrong? What am I doing wrong? And the airplane's spinning. I see Pensacola Beach going like this below me, I look at that, and 5,000 feet is our hard deck. We got to bail out because we didn't have ejection.
You don't have
seats. You
time
to
much
bail
after
out
that.
like
Yeah.
World War II, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh crap. I think I just saw 6,000 go by. Then suddenly it clicked in my head. Idiot. Right.
Spinning left.
Yeah,
Right rudder.
So I stuck the right rudder in there, and the airplane goes smack, and it snaps straight and level.
It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was doing everything that you told it to do.
That's
right?
Exactly.
I'm glad you didn't jump out of that thing, man. That would have been the shits.
Swede, there's a saying in computers, and it kind of applies here. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly right.
Do you remember the bailout procedure for the T-34?
Ooh, pick me.
Oh my gosh, no.
Crew
Call
canopy,
canopy
cords,
cords,
harness, crash,
harness,
dive,
off, and
D-ring.
Very good.
Because I can't get rid of it. It's there for life.
Yep.
Crew canopy, cords, harness, crash, dive, D-ring, damn it. Woo!
That's awesome. Good for you, man. I
And
had
with
forgotten
that, we've got to come to an end and land this airplane. Oh, this has been fun, and the time has just
it's been fun.
flown right
Oh my
by.
gosh, it went by very fast.
It did.
Hour.
It
We've
did.
been at this an hour and a half.
So
Oh,
you
yeah,
got more
that's awesome.
stories.
You got
Gonna
more
write 'em
stories?
down.
Write them
Gonna
down.
Bring you back. Going to talk more
Yeah.
about some of the crazy shit you did with Luke at the boat school, among other
Oh,
things.
yeah.
And Luke was indeed show 5, and it was
Show 5.
Harrier
Whoa.
1, 9-point buck 0.
Oh, that's right.
That was his show.
That's a great
And,
story.
And I
Yeah.
never knew that story. I mean,
It's a
Craig's
great
good
story.
friend, Luke's a good friend. I never knew that story.
Yeah, game warden was coming after him, man. He wanted that.
Right.
He wanted that. He wanted that. He wanted the rack.
Right? Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
I don't know.
Well, Badass wants us to keep going, but unfortunately, we have commitments. We've got to land this plane, and
I know.
we're almost out of
Very good.
gas. We're bingo fuel. So, Swede, thank you for your service, and thank you for spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you for your service,
We're
Swede.
humbled and honored.
Thank you for your service, and thanks for the invitation. It was an honor. And
It was a blast, dude.
It was a blast.
It was a
doing
blast.
this.
It
This
was
is
a blast. You
We're
are
gonna do some more of
the.
this.
Hold on a second. Was he
Second
is he the
P3 guy.
Second P3 guy. Yeah. And you know what? I learned something new that you guys would shut down the number 1 engine because there was no accessories on it.
Right.
That's brilliant.
Who knew?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were just going eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's just shut one down. No, there was some purpose to it, which is nice.
Let's shut the number 3 down this time. Oh, well.
Oh!
Whoa.
No, Fig just dropped his knocked his microphone off, dropped
I
it.
just had
What a-
I had a structural failure.
No
hold it and
kidding.
hold still, and
Yeah.
holy
shit!
smokes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
everybody. That scared
All right,
the
Fig's-
living shit right out of me. There, that was
Fig's
like
been
idle.
drinking and beating up his
Idle.
equipment and
I've only had a beer and a half
idle.
here.
Idle. Yeah, well,
Damn it.
there's that. All right.
Well,
Fig, hold that thing till the end, and we'll
Put
get this
together
done.
later.
We got a couple other thank yous we got to get out of the way. First and foremost, we need to thank Dave Hamilton over at backbeatmedia.com. They help out with advertising. If you have a show and you need advertising, reach out to backbeatmedia.com online. Dave also has 3 other shows, the Mac Geek Gab, the Gig Gab for musicians, and the Business Brain for entrepreneurs. So
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much
Dave
for
Hamilton.
all the support. Yeah.
Dave's the
Fig,
man.
if you want to get a cool shirt like I'm wearing, or a cool hat, or maybe, I don't know, a bikini.
Well, now we're talking. It is bikini season. That's where you
is.
would go to. So there I was.us/merch and get the damn bikini for your hot girlfriend or
There you go.
significant other.
Get it done. Or
Yeah.
your wife. Don't get one for your wife and your girlfriend and mix them up, though.
Don't have them both in the same spot at the same time, unless they know each other, and that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. So go to sothereiwas.us/rate please, and give us a 5-star rating. We've gotten a couple this week, and or one this week that I'm aware of, and so that's good. We're deeply appreciative of that. If you're going to give us a 4-star or less, go give it to another show. Don't give it to us.
No, give us a debrief, man. Tell us how we can get it to a 5, because we're trainable.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm trainable. I don't know about repeat, but
I'm not. Hell. Yeah, just put your microphone back.
We're
together there,
trainable.
Fig,
We're both.
We
trainable.
we are indeed, and we're having a ball with this. Gonna foreshadow something here. Just the decision hasn't been made yet, but we're thinking of going to a show every other week instead of every week. So just gonna throw that out at this point. It's getting tough to keep bringing a show every week. Not impossible, but thusly tough. And so we think we can keep the quality up if we think about doing that. We'll let you know once that decision's been made. Let's see who else. Oh, to all the people who are demonstrating serious lack of judgment and throwing their hard-earned money at us.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
God bless you and thank you. We're humbled and grateful. People going to sotherewas.us/Patreon or to our direct donation page and giving us their hard-earned cash to keep these stories coming to you. This is not a cheap proposition, and you make it possible. You really do. We couldn't have kept this up this long if it hadn't been for all the help from the wonderful people who support us there. And you get extra stories. For those of you who are supporting us, you know this. For those of you who aren't yet, and you're thinking about it, you get an extra story. Try to do it every week with somebody, and nobody else gets those stories. So we try to make those fun. Let's see. What else, Fig? Anything else we're forgetting?
Well, that music reminds me. That's the 2 Air Force F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. The Dos Gringos.
Dos Gringos. Count
They got 4 albums. There's not a bad song on any one of those albums. As a matter of fact, if you want to laugh your ass off, listen to a couple of those songs.
Get them. You're on Amazon, Spotify, anywhere you find good music, they're there. So there you go. Hey, thanks, Sticks, for all the great help you've been today, producing the show, getting things up in the background. You're doing it almost before we even think about it, and we're grateful to you for your help. Bago's running the show over there at Facebook. Facebook.com/sotherewas.us. Got a little over 1,400 members on our page. Share the show.
It's growing. Share the show. Doesn't cost nothing. Just share the show.
No, doesn't cost nothing at all. I don't know, Fig. Got any advice until next week?
Well, don't sit on the ejection seat handle. Don't bail out of a perfectly good airplane. How's that?
Yeah, put in some right rudder.
I like that one.
Right rudder.
Right rudder.
There you go.
Let it rip, Tater Chip.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
He said something about it being what?
He said it's over.
Mistakes were made.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they were.
Yeah, we're out.
Booyah.
All right. Booyah.
All right, guys.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, yo. That was awesome, brother.
Thank you. I enjoyed
Fantastic.
it. That was I had a blast. That was fun.
Very cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy your
All right, everybody.
date
So,
night.
well, don't go anywhere yet, Swede. I'm going to end the live stream for everybody and say thank you very much for joining us. There are some hard commitments for the people here that we've got to make. So we're going to end the live stream, and thank you for being with us. Badass, great to see you. Dizzy, thank you for coming. And
Thanks,
all
Dizzy.
the many others that
Thanks,
looks like
Badass.
we were up to 3 dozen at one point. So,
Yeah, that was fun.
All right, here we go.
That was fun.
And as Dizzy said, Fig had a rapid disassembly event.
I did at one point. That
We're
thing
out.
came flying out of that thing.